Welcome to Courtside Moms. I am your host, Wendy Sparks. Today, I will be sitting down with Monica Baldwin, mother of Wade Baldwin IV, who currently plays in the EuroLeague with Olympiakos Basketball Club in Greece. Sit back and enjoy.
I do it naturally. I do it naturally, baby.
Hi, Monica. I would like to thank you so much for coming on Courtside Moms today to share your story about your son, Wade Baldwin. His career to date has been so exciting, so diverse, and we'd love to hear so much more about it.
Thank you, Wendy, so much for having me today. And thanks to your whole team at Title League Productions. Kurt, Trish, Mark, and Jeff, I really appreciate all you guys bringing me here to lovely Nova Scotia to talk a little bit about basketball and the moms of professional basketball players.
Tell us about your son. How did he get involved in basketball? Where did it all begin?
His basketball career started early on. We were living in Virginia, and I actually coached him in basketball at a local YMCA, and I did youth basketball. That's a little something kind of about what I bring to the table, I guess, as far as being, kind of a strong, independent, compassionate mother, friend, leader, whatever, is that I'm always trying to give back, to help other people and give back. So one of the things I did, because very early on we recognized Wade's talents as an athlete, period, not necessarily basketball, because at age 2, he was able to hit a pitched ball to him, overhand throwing. So he already had the hand-eye coordination very early on. We got him his Little Tykes basketball hoop and things like that. I had it set up in our living room, and he's just always loved sports. I used to do gymnastics too. Whoever heard of a 6-foot gymnast? But anyway, we had a balance beam. I had a balance beam that my parents had bought me, and we used to set that outside in the backyard or down in the basement, and he would walk on that too to get balance and do different things. So we just did all kinds of different things outdoors with him, and he just always loved sports. So basketball specifically, I guess formally he began playing probably at age, I'll say 5 or 6. And I was coaching him up at a local YMCA program. And then from there we moved back to New Jersey, and we started in various programs. It's funny, when we first got back to New Jersey, they recognized Wade as a great athlete, but we came too late for him to join baseball because everything had to be done computerized. And so we came, and I didn't realize you had to sign up early for these things because we had just moved there. And so he ended up getting on a baseball team in 2nd grade, and they won the championship. And so everybody recognized him for his athletic prowess. And then we were going to go into basketball, and they were like, well, now all the parents of decent athletes, I guess, were asked then to coach. So I then became the coach of basketball also in our town in New Jersey. And I really didn't. Basketball was not my first love, and it's not. Football was, and I loved baseball also. So I really had to learn about basketball and how to coach kids and how to do all of that. So I did a lot of studying of skills and drills and things like that. I mean, Wade's dad was the athlete of the family as far as, basketball and football. I did gymnastics and tennis and things like that, but not any of the main 3 sports.
So how did Wade feel about having his mom as a coach?
Well, I don't think he minded it necessarily. But I mean, I tried to be fair as far as a lot of times in youth sports, you have those rules where, it's either 4 minutes in and 4 minutes out or whatever. So you rotate all of the players so that everybody gets an equal opportunity in this day and age of participation trophies and everything else, as right or wrong as that is. And that's probably a whole nother discussion, but tried to be fair as far as things go and base it on teamwork and skills and skill development and things like that. And of course you want to win. I mean, there's no question about that as well, but
of course everybody wants to win, right?
There's other lessons associated with sports beyond just winning. So
of course, well, for the parents' perspective, right, or an
Yes.
adult's perspective, the kids just want to win.
Yes.
Right? So.
Well, and then you have the balancing act of, pleasing the parents as well, and making sure that, everybody is happy with the playing time that their child is getting and things
Yes.
like that, and developing within a team environment as well. So
Where did he go to high school?
Wade went to 2 different high schools. So we decided, we lived in a very good town with a great schooling system, and it's funny, you pay taxes in that town, and you envision that your child is going to go to school in that town. But at that time, Wade was kind of a standout football player, and we wanted him to go to a more football dominant type of school than the town that we lived in. So we sent him to, he had to take all the testing and do all of that to get into Immaculata High School, which was a Catholic high school. And then after his sophomore year there were some incidences at the school where there was an individual who was filming people in the locker room, one of the coaches, and after early practices and things like that. And so we decided to leave that school. Wade wasn't involved in any of it, but just the nature of, and I don't want to get into the religious thing and Catholic sports and Catholic whatever. But we made a move. And actually what ended up happening was Wade, was somewhat dissatisfied with how things were going as far as the team.
Right.
And so he played against an individual named Marcus Towns who played for Cardinal McCarrick High School, which was another rival Catholic school. And this was at the same time where Dwayne Wade and LeBron and Chris Bosh were creating the Big Three in Miami with the Heat. Mm-hmm. So Wade kind of envisioned the same thing where they would create the Big Three and they would go to St. Joseph's High School, which Carl Towns, who was the number 1 draft pick in 2015, was there. And so Wade talked to Marcus, who then left Cardinal McCarrick, and Wade left Immaculata, and they created their own Big Three. And that was kind of the brainstorm of Wade IV to come up with that. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for him. On the court and off the court. Again, being at an all-boys high school too, which is very different because that's something he had never experienced. Just being, without any other sexes in the campus. But it was really good, and the coach Turco was a really, really good coach, and we remain friends today as well. Very strong friendships with the Towns, both Towns, because it's Marcus Towns, Townes, and Carl Towns, Towns. Yeah. So they are lifelong friends, and I know Marcus has been on vacations with Wade, and their friendship remains very tight and close.
What was your decision process when choosing Vanderbilt?
Okay, so very, very interesting. As you're going through this whole process and your child is playing AAU basketball, you're being approached by a lot of different schools and a lot of different coaches. Wade's dad lived out of the country for 6 or 7 years, I think, during his formative years, I guess from age 4 to 11, I guess. But when he came back in, we kind of presented a united front as far as the schools would have to kind of come through us as well, right. And not just go to Wade, because this is a very kind and cruel business, in the business of basketball. runs the full gamut of and spectrum of people that are involved within the sport as well. So we always wanted to just be cautious about that. But Wade enjoyed a lot of, interest from Division I schools. And one time he was actually at an FBI leadership training program at Quantico, Virginia, which was a week-long leadership program for youth under 16-year-olds attend this course. And he was selected and had to write an essay to get into it and everything like that, and get interviewed by a police officer in the state of New Jersey who was a representative of the organization. And he went down there and he got in trouble actually for using a cell phone because coaches were calling him to come to their school, and he was supposed to be like cell phone-less, cell phones banned or whatever. So he was trying to like juggle those things while attending this leadership training course and doing physical fitness and going on field trips and doing all of these various things with 60 students from around the world that attended this, and juggling and managing that. But ultimately, it came down to about 5 or 6 schools that were really showing great interest. And Wade decided that he wanted to go to Vanderbilt, but it came about in sort of a strange way because he only went on one official visit. And his dad and I were like, you get 5. Why wouldn't you just go to the other schools and you get treated like a king? Once in your life, you never know where this is going. And he went to Vanderbilt and he saw the situation there. He liked Coach Stallings, and he liked the fact that it was a great academic school. They call it, Harvard of the South. And he liked the fact that there was also the arena that they played in was on campus. He always had said that that's kind of what he wanted, was to have that campus feel in selecting a school as well, that, everybody could get there, that people didn't have to be bused to the event or something like that, that they could just walk to the arena. And that is what Vanderbilt offered.
So he found an immediate comfort zone with Vanderbilt when you chose a school.
Is there an immediate comfort zone? I don't know. It held the elements of which he looked, but Wade was, I think, a 4-star recruit. They had a 4 or 5-star recruit that they brought in, that was actually started above him. And shortly through a few games, and then Wade became the starter because it became very evident the talent and the skill that he had.
So he wasn't there that long, was he?
He only lasted 2 years, and he was drafted the number 17th pick in the 2016 draft by the Memphis Grizzlies.
That's right. So take us to draft night. How did your family prepare for draft night?
Wow. Draft night was interesting. How did we prepare for it? Well, there was a lot of logistics and planning, and this is something that I kind of obviously took control of. We had friends and family come in for the event. We had a whole contingency there. So I had ordered buses, plane rides. I actually had to work with the compliance people because of NCAA rules in bringing in 2 of Wade's teammates, Matthew Fisher Davis and Jeff Roberson, came from Vanderbilt to attend the draft that were Vanderbilt basketball players. And I have to deal with Vanderbilt and the NCAA compliance people to be sure that I wasn't, and Wade wasn't like giving them a gift that wouldn't normally have been given. But fortunately, we'd invited them on vacations and done things prior to that. So obviously, because of my former career now, I was an FBI agent. Wade's dad was a DEA agent, Drug Enforcement Administration agent. We were very cognizant about the rules and abiding by all of the rules. And so we got past all of that and were able to bring the boys up for the draft. So I got hotel rooms for everybody. We organized a big post-draft party. And it was amazing. I don't even know how many people were there. I think there was like more than 50 or 60 people at the party. It was amazing. Kevin Durant ended up coming in. and to the party as well. And it was a fabulous experience. But it is a little nerve-wracking because we were in the green room, I guess, or one of the people that was selected, one of the families that was selected to sit at the table. So even making the selection of who's going to be at the table with you is hard because you're excluding some people and you're including other people. And obviously the agents were going to be at the table as well. So the whole experience was great. Leading up to it, they had, photo shoots and things like that, and luncheons to meet with the commissioner. And, you got to see a smattering of like all the young athletes that were potentially going to be drafted. Right. And then even those that weren't invited to the green room that then were surprised and came out of the stands. And then those that chose to select to stay home versus go to the draft, and it's just a whole gamut of things and experiences that you have. It was great seeing old faces, new faces, all of the above of these kids that we've watched on the AAU and then, of course, on the college circuit all kind of come together and see their successes. And to see, your son on the stage with all those other athletes, it actually gets me a little emotional even now because it's just such a prideful moment when you see that. And as you're sitting there waiting for who you think is supposed to, because the agencies tell you basically the teams that are somewhat interested in your son. And so you're sitting there and waiting and waiting and waiting, and we're wondering, and this draft pick goes, and that was a team that was supposedly interest you, and then that, But I have to say, Wade's agency is Priority Sports and Entertainment in Chicago, Illinois, and they did a really wonderful job of really setting realistic expectations as to where he would fall, kind of in the draft. Mm-hmm. And so we knew the range that we felt he would go in, and he absolutely did go in that. So. But there's nothing that can replace when the Memphis Grizzlies, announce that they're going to pick your son and he goes across the stage.
That must have been a proud mom moment.
Very much so.
Family moment, right?
Yeah.
What do you think was going through Wade's mind that night?
Wade is a very confident, strong-willed individual. And he manages his emotions probably better than most people I see that are fully grown. And he always has. He's always had a very mature mindset about things. Even from being in 8th grade and getting invited to a party or something like that. And he would make a decision not to go to a party because he knew there would be drugs or drink or whatever the case may be. And he always put himself in smart situations and managed those situations really well. And so this night, I know he was a bundle of emotions as well, but he camouflaged it, much like most of us do throughout life, is smile and kind of keep it moving. Never let him see you sweat type of mentality, which I, of course, had in my job as well, and his dad had in his job as well. So I guess we passed that along to some extent to Wade IV. But he managed it well. But the grin on his face when his name was called was just, it's priceless.
Of course. So here he was drafted to the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yes.
But then things changed quickly thereafter. Tell us about that.
Well, I was working at the time. His dad had already retired, and the decision was made that I would move to Memphis. I was going to retire after we went to Summer League in Las Vegas, and then I was going to retire the next year anyway, so I just bumped it up by 6 or 8 months and moved to Memphis with the idea, that we would be there for some time. Obviously, he signed the rookie contract. And immediately upon getting there, and it was never made, I look at some athletes and it was made very public when people go in and try to change your shot. I don't know why we needed to change Wade's shot, frankly. He was a 43% field goal shooter. He was 40% from 3 and he was over 80% in foul shooting. So I don't really know why you felt you needed to change his shot, but immediately upon getting there in July, before Summer League, they began to change his shot. And I think he did not have a great performance that he had hoped for in his initial Summer League. And it became pretty obvious that they had in mind somebody else to be the backup point guard for Mike Conley. So, Wade was there, and then ultimately he got sent to the Iowa Energy, which was a G League team of the Memphis Grizzlies. I guess the difficult and challenging part of that is you were in, and he was in Memphis for a good amount of time first, and actually he set a record for a rookie in his first game as far as they went up and played the Knicks. And I forget what the statistics were exactly, but he ended up setting a record for a rookie with steals, blocks, assists, and I think he didn't have that many points, but I think it was the most steals, blocks, and assists that an athlete had in their rookie outing. So we thought he started out really well, and we're a little bit surprised to hear that he was going to be going then to the Iowa Energy eventually. So being sent to the G League, I don't think it has the same exact stigma as it used to be when it was like the D League. I mean, they really are trying to make it a better and more developmental type league. But with it comes, you have to deal with your ego and your emotions mentally about, coming out of Vanderbilt or wherever and not being the man and going to the Grizzlies. And, now you're not the backup point guard and things like that as well, as you were kind of led to believe going in. So he went to the Iowa Energy, and the Grizzlies did many, many things well. But one thing was, when you're that far away from your home team, so the Grizzlies are in Memphis, Tennessee, and Iowa is, you can't even get a direct flight, so you're talking about a whole day of travel to get in. You hear about athletes who, like in Oklahoma City, for example, their G League team plays right next door to the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's close proximity with a lot of the G League teams, which makes it people available to bounce back and forth. And this is before two-way contracts, because there was no such thing at that time. So it was challenging because, you had to then travel a day and then go back and be with the team. And it was selective. Oh, now you're going on a West Coast thing because, you're closer to get to the West Coast. And it was sort of a little bit haphazard with that. And they sent him there with really no goal, no marching orders, no focus, no nothing. Just go. So kind of what's the development in that, unfortunately? You know what I'm saying? Like, where are the developmental lessons in that? Just go play basketball? I think that there was a little bit of something missing in the translation. Fortunately, in the coming year, the Grizzlies front office came out to Iowa and really kind of got in the weeds and learned about the energy and the city and kind of tried to make the relationship, I guess, between the two a little more symbiotic than it probably was early on when Wade was there.
Take us to Portland.
The Portland Trailblazers. So Wade's journey to the Portland Trailblazers was also interesting because everything was really good on a Saturday night, and the agency is telling us all is good, and the next thing we know, Wade is cut from the Grizzlies. And he's going to be picked up by the Portland Trailblazers a few days later. So Wade's dad came to Memphis to go to the opening game. This all just happened just a few days before the opening game in October. So, we were both there, fortunately, for Wade during that time. When he was sitting there for a few days without a job, basically, and his head swirling and wondering what the heck is going on. So, I tried to keep things light. I kept him moving. I know he's an active kid. We went out and played some football and just tried to keep it moving. He played his video games. He had his friends to support him as well. We went out to dinners, and then the news came that he was going to Portland. And it was a crazed time because we're now boxing and packing up things so that he can go to Portland. And, he's got his apartment and all of this. So his dad takes off, we're packing up, etc. He leaves to go to Portland to go to his physical. And during the physical, they noticed that he had a tendon tear. And I noticed he had been pulling at his finger even when we were throwing the football outside. And I said, what's wrong with your finger? And he said, it's just a jammed finger. The Grizzlies, trainers and doctors or whatever just said it's a jammed finger. Well, he gets out to Portland and the MRI or whatever they did showed that he had a torn tendon. So now it's going to require immediate surgery. So if you understand anything about two-way contracts are such that you can have a maximum of 45 days with the NBA team. And that means any contact with the team. So if you are rehabbing your thumb and you're in the facility and you're talking to players, that's a day. It counts as a day. And he would never have been on the court. So I was like, absolutely not. He's not getting surgery there. We went with Priority Sports Agency, said, let's get him to Hospital for Special Surgery in New York. So he flew from Portland and then he flew to New York to be seen by a specialist. And I know I was volunteering at a hospital at the Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, and I was waiting for the call for the doctor to tell him whether he needed surgery or not. And ultimately they said, yes, he did. I got on a flight that afternoon, that evening. It was like heck to get to New York, but finally got in there. And I was there for him for the surgery. And during that time, we also knew that he was going to need to rehab for 6 to 8 weeks. So I was out the morning of his surgery after just getting there looking for places for where he could live and looking for apartment possibilities and things like that where he could do his rehab. So while he's in surgery, I'd found a place through some connections of ours, and actually his financial planner in New York suggested a place. And it turned out to be golden. It had a basketball court in the basement right by Times Square. It turned out to be absolutely wonderful and within walking distance to the NBA Players Association gym where he could work out, and then physical therapy. And obviously he had to take an Uber and things to the hospital as well. So signed the contract while he was in surgery for him to get his apartment. And then he came back. We then had to move to another hotel, and it was a very chaotic situation. And anyway, the rehab process started. And so he was in New York rehabbing. He had nothing to do with the Portland Trail Blazers. And I will bring this up only it's one of the things that I would like to educate people on too. With all the movement that goes on among teams and things like that, Wade was entitled to workers' compensation. And the Memphis Grizzlies were paying for his surgery and things like that because he was still affiliated with their team on his contract. But no one really checked up on Wade to see how he was doing because he was sort of between teams. So he was kind of in a no man's land. He was signed with the Portland Trail Blazers, but he wasn't really with them yet. You know what I'm saying? And he hadn't stepped on a court or done anything with them yet. So anyway, I ended up calling and getting with Memphis and speaking to talk about what was recoverable expenses, because there was, hotel costs and other things that nobody had picked up. So I ended up fighting for and working towards getting him workers' comp reimbursement for some of the things that we had paid out of pocket that I really felt should have been paid by the teams. But due to my experience from having my own federal workers' comp claim for a shoulder injury that happened on the job, I kind of knew how to navigate that. So I always want to let moms know too, that if you ever have any questions, I'm by no means an expert on it, but I certainly can help people navigate through some things if you're facing injury or you have questions about who's caring for your son and how are they legally or medically covered. But then we'll go to Portland. So after New York and his rehab, he was sent to the Texas Legends because Portland does not have a G League affiliate. So he could have picked any team to go to, basically. And he ended up going to the Texas Legends, which turned out to be an absolute godsend, a very experienced coach, a very losing team. And when Wade got there, he turned it around, and they, I think, lost 3 games and won all of the rest, whereas before they had 3 wins total. I think they were 3-12 when he got there, and I think he won 12 games and lost 3 when he was there. And then after that, the whole rest of the time he was with Portland and the Trailblazers. Portland is a beautiful organization. The leadership of, it's interesting to go to different teams, and I'm sure your experiences are somewhat the same too, to see the different leadership among the players. And I'm not talking about the hierarchy and the management of them, but within the locker room. And Damian Lillard is clearly a leader in Portland, and you see that by the statements that he makes about wanting to stay on the team. It was a great environment for him. Very family and player oriented, and they were all together kind of as one. They did events together. They went to each other's houses. It was very much a warm and embracing environment. It was for me as a parent also in going there, and it's kind of how I met with the moms and got involved in our Mothers of Professional Basketball group also, because Damian Lillard's mom and CJ McCollum's mom, Alfarika Minu, and Ed Davis's mom, we were kind of like a group of us together, and it was really a really nice experience for me all around. Well, and for Wade.
Absolutely. It's good when you're in a position where you can get other resources and help. I mean, being on the same group together, we listen to the mothers, and everybody has such different experiences with their sons.
Absolutely.
And everybody had their ups and downs. I mean, I'm listening to you, and you're saying your son was first round draft pick, 17th to Memphis Grizzlies, and then things just quickly changed. So there's no certainties in the basketball world.
None at all.
You just never know where you're going to end up the next very day.
Yeah, it's a business, and
Absolutely.
as a player, you're a commodity. And I think you almost have to take, I don't want to say emotion, because you want to play with passion and you want to be there with passion, but you kind of have to take a step back as individuals, as families, as everybody, and take a collective deep breath. And where you go and what team you go to and how that team embraces you and what your role is on that team is so different. You know, some people as rookies have carte blanche, and they're the person that's allowed to make mistakes and grow within an environment. And other people, depending on the environment, are cut short and never given that opportunity. Right. And I think that that's like the unfortunate part of the business that I guess I've seen, and of course my son has experienced, is you go in with a certain perception and expectations, and quickly they do change. Because of the dynamic, because of the needs of the team, because of a specific performance, because of a coaching relationship, because of a front office wants something and they're pushing a certain player. There's a lot of different situations that come into play in the business of basketball.
Now he's playing with Olympiacos in Greece.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did he end up on this team? I mean, we talked about it because both of our sons were on this same very team. And I remember meeting you on the bus that time, and we were talking about it. I'm like, Olympiacos, hold on a second. Kem was there, and we were sharing our experiences.
And that's so amazing that you were able to like tell me some of your experiences and Kem's experiences with Olympiacos and some of the things that you guys encountered, because, it just made me more aware of things to look for and, of course, how to help your child as they're overseas. I think this is an especially unique situation because it's hard. It's hard. You experienced that obviously very early on because you let your son go at such a young age, go to the U.S. and go with coaches that you then had to entrust and everything. In my situation, I've been much more involved, and I went on all the AAU road trips, and I would do crazy things like travel from Newark in the morning and fly to San Francisco and go and see a game against Stanford and fly back on the red eye and go to work the next day. Like I was very involved in his basketball successes and now also challenges. So in Portland, he was coming up and he wasn't getting a lot of playing time. And, it's difficult because you go into a great environment where you're learning a lot, but, you've got two all-stars basically, ahead of you and another player who's getting paid, like 11 or $18 million and they want to get their money out of. So they change and reconfigure things and make somebody a point guard who isn't naturally a point guard, but that's how they elect to make their lineup and how they feel they have the best success, best chance for success. So you can't argue with it. You're the new person. They obviously have a winning record, some great successes, and they're a great organization. So you're waiting for your time. And unfortunately, his time never really came. So anyway, they ended up releasing him on February 2nd. And it was kind of our idea because the agency was telling us there was other interest and the Portland Trailblazers were telling us there was other interest for Wade. And ultimately, then that was a whirlwind because he ended up getting traded to 3 different teams within 2 days, I believe it was. He and Nick Stauskas, who's also playing over in Europe now as well. Both of them were released by the Grizzlies before the trade deadline in February, and then got traded to the 3 separate teams, and then eventually released again. So now he's without a job again. And he went to Cleveland. And he sat on the bench for a game and everything, and he went and did their physical and all of that kind of stuff. And, the coach is like, oh, we'd love to have you and all of these things. And, they tell you things. And then the next thing you know, you're traded a half a second later. And he never even got to Houston. Then he was traded to Indianapolis Pacers, the Indiana Pacers. But then you're also just left in Cleveland. Right. So now you got to get your own way back home to figure out all of that kind of stuff. So I think I've handled between me and Wade 10 moves in 3 years. It was like a lot of moving basically. But now he's over with Olympiacos in Athens, Greece. And I recently just returned from there. Hopefully it's going to turn into a great experience over with Olympiacos. I was fortunate enough to go to France and see their first game. And EuroLeague is another level of basketball. As far as the basketball, the defense is oftentimes, I guess, more like NBA playoff defense versus, but they play it season long over there. So it's not a lot of taking off plays, some plays like they do here in the NBA at times. And the fans are crazy. It's like going to a soccer match, basically football, they call it in Europe, but they're very enthusiastic to say the least. And they keep these chants and cheers going on for the whole time. Like in America, you go through your ebbs and flows and things like that in basketball or in Toronto or anywhere else. And you guys have your Jurassic Park and everything else up here. But Europe is a whole nother ball game. It really is, as far as the fans and the excitement level over there of that game.
Yeah, Kim had said the same thing too, being in Greece. And he kept saying to me, it's such a different level of basketball.
Yes.
And it's funny because when I'm speaking to other parents about EuroLeague, the ones who haven't been in EuroLeague, they don't believe how big it is.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, it's really, really big. Ken played in Turkey and he played in Greece. And he was saying it's just nothing like the NBA. He says that the development is a little bit different.
Yes.
So he appreciated his time there, as I'm sure Wade will. He'll learn so much more there.
Yeah, I think as he was just talking about the game of basketball, the on-court, and then, of course, the off-court, I think it's such a growth opportunity for you. As Wade has been through so many ups and downs and peaks and valleys within his very short NBA career and now in EuroLeague, it's yet another thing that helps you grow and mature. You're now living in a foreign country, having to navigate that. You're traveling to 16 to 18 different countries. And what a fabulous opportunity for a young person. I mean, I know I'll speak for myself, and I don't know if I speak for you too. I didn't travel to a lot of foreign countries when I was growing up. And, certainly in my 20s, I think, I went to Florida for the first time, or
my form was New York.
Second time, right? So, times have changed and things are so much more international and global, and the borders have just come down. And I think it's amazing for the player. I think it's amazing for basketball in general. The NBA's influence also in the EuroLeague Players Association. and working with them to advocate on behalf of the players really took a step forward this year as well with regard to allowing them, more leg room in their seats and things like that. And I flew with the team to France, so I was kind of able to see this firsthand in giving them kind of the exit row seats and things like that, even on smaller commercial airlines, which is what they have to fly on. In that, and you also do in the G League, giving them rooms to themselves and things like that. You're grown men, you've already, some of them have already been in the NBA, et cetera. So not having roommates and things like that, like you would maybe in the G League or something like that. They're trying to make it more of a professional league there. Paying on time, because obviously in EuroLeague, there had been teams which had issues as far as paying on time. And I know you know that situation as well. So
months sometimes.
So it's, and then just for better healthcare and things of that nature. So I think Wade has gone over to the EuroLeague and to Olympiacos specifically at a great time when they've made some great strides in the league to advocate more for the players as well.
What are Wade's expectations now with the Olympiacos? Does he see this as a stepping stone back to the NBA?
I think when you sign an overseas contract, you're obviously committed for a year. Wade signed a 2-year contract with an option out after a 1 year if he were to be signed by an NBA team. However, I think you go into any contract with the belief, hope, and expectation that you're going there to develop your game, to make a difference, and to use it as a stepping stone. Is it a stepping stone to, a EuroLeague championship and bringing Olympiacos out of last year? They didn't qualify for the playoffs. So I think ultimately getting to the playoffs is step one. And I think then you ultimately set things from there as to whether, you're going to renew the contract and stay on your contract with them for a second year, or if there are opportunities elsewhere. I mean, I think that that's something that you kind of look to the future for. I think that bears in mind too, just saying that it's important that these young men and young ladies in the WNBA and the G Leaguers and everyone else and international players, managing your money intelligently and not falling prey to the, broke type of 30 for 30 specials that go on. There's a lot of information that's available today about being smart with your money and watching out for hangers-oners and, people who want to take your money from you, or, there's several NBA players who have been taken by their financial planners and ripped off of hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions in some cases. It really bears noting that these young men do make a lot of money, but they need to be responsible with their money. And I'm really happy to say that it doesn't matter whether Wade's in the NBA or EuroLeague or wherever. He's got a really strong team around him that ensures that he lives his life basically like he did growing up. I mean, we're middle class, and that's the life that he lives. Does he earn more than that? And a paycheck might say that you are. Yes, but I think if you're looking at the long term and managing your money, you have to really be responsible in how you allocate that money and what you do with it. And, I think everyone is a little bit wowed by the fame and fortune or the potential of that or the allure of all of that. But I'm really proud to say my son has stayed very grounded as far as all of that goes. And there's been no extraneous purchases of any kind. We, really just handle our business responsibly, and we're going to be looking at different business ventures in order to see what the next step is, because I think growth and development on the court is important. I also think finishing his education at Vanderbilt will be an important step at some point in his career, or maybe it's after his career, because you're not guaranteed anything. I think the average lifespan of a player in the NBA is less than 5 years. So I think you have to set realistic expectations about this business of basketball and your place within it. I mean, we pray, and everyone does pray for long term, and you work at your skills development and all of those things to be long term in the NBA or in the EuroLeague or in the G League or whatever it is that's your passion. And as long as you still want to step on a court and bounce a ball, and that's how you want to earn your money, then that's exactly what you should do. But I want Wade and, of course, all players to be open-minded. And I think the advent of the LeBrons and the business side of things and expansion into China and all of these different areas really affords players a great platform in which to expand themselves and expand their knowledge, in addition to just traveling to other teams in other countries and other places, to really understand that there is a business side. Just like you're a commodity, then you have a platform in which you can advance yourself also in other areas, whether it's through education or setting yourself up for your career after basketball or whatever, business ventures, whatever it may be.
So tell me about his current business venture.
Wade was asked to be an initial investor in a company called Lemon Perfect. So it is a flavored water with 5 calories, 0 calories from sugar, and it comes in 4 delicious flavors. One of them is blueberry acai. Let me see. There's a raspberry. There's, of course, the regular lemon, and then there is a peach also. And being marketed in Whole Foods and a bunch of different places from California to New York. We're not in all the states yet, but Wade was recruited to Vanderbilt by an individual named Yanni Huffnagel. And he was everybody kind of has a lead person that kind of is the recruiter and then brings them on board. And Yanni ended up leaving Vanderbilt and going west, and ultimately left the game of basketball and coaching, and started this business venture and asked for Wade to be an investor in it. And it's been really great. We've gone through a lot of the changes in marketing and packaging and advertising and the transportation and how to distribute it and things like that. They've got a whole plant, and it's really an interesting business venture, and one Wade said as soon as he tasted it. And we were trying a bunch of different ones. We had some meetings at Summer League when he was out there for with the Grizzlies, and different tasting samples and things like that to kind of perfect things. And it's kind of been interesting. You don't know what's a good business venture. We've been approached about a few others, and some of them, the initial capital investment was too great, but this one seemed like a really reasonable one and something he believed in. So it's great for health. We're maybe going to work to getting it in with some of the teams and in different environments. It's in health food stores. It's in gyms, some places across the country, and it's exciting to see. Something that your son believes in and that wanted to be a part of, and to support somebody who obviously had a great impact on getting him into a college and recruiting him to a great institution such as Vanderbilt.
I just want to go back to you for one moment.
Okay.
Here you are, an FBI agent.
Retired.
Yes, FBI agent, to now managing your son's basketball career. How has that impacted your life?
Well, it's continued to give me kind of people say like a purpose-driven life, or something that has purpose. When you're so involved in your child's sports, as I explained, I kind of started coaching, and I was a commissioner of Pop Warner football, coached baseball, did all of these, and do crazy things like fly across the country for a game, go to all the AAU tournaments, help fundraise for AAU, run tournaments to raise money for AAU. I've just been so involved in his career as a whole. I feel like I did all of that while I was still an FBI agent, right? So it's managing and juggling all those things in addition to, more than a full-time job, because we obviously worked more than just 8 hours a day. But it's allowed me to kind of stay in something that I have a passion about and a belief in, or I wouldn't have been so involved in this. it also, Wade's basketball has also opened opportunities for me. For example, when I was at the Memphis Grizzlies, they had a beautiful organization of women down there, the wives and girlfriends, and then I was the mom that was involved. And we did so many charitable things. And they actually introduced me to Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, where I was able to go and do voluntary work there. I worked in the department and helped children and families, and then also in the emergency department. And it really, I've always, I think I kind of maybe led in with like to help people and give back to people and things like that. So Wade's basketball has opened avenues in that area as well for me to look into business ventures, to review his contracts. Obviously, I have some knowledge, I guess, I'm college educated, et cetera, and then went through a career in the FBI, which opened my eyes to many things as well and educated me in a lot of different areas. And I think that that's allowed me to help Wade. I would only be doing this if that's something that he wanted to do. And I often ask him in a check and balance system, because that's the way it has to be. I don't get paid for what I do. I don't ask my son for anything. I have my own money. Mm-hmm. His dad has his own money. We don't ask him for anything. His career is his to enjoy and his money to enjoy. And his success to enjoy as well. And we enjoy it as well along with him. But I ask him every so often, what could I be doing better? Is there anything you need from me that I'm not doing and not helping you with? And there isn't, but we can have very frank discussions. So it's a little bit of a balance because I'm being mom and I have to be compassionate and understanding. And obviously with all of the ups and downs and struggles and battles and successes and failures that he's had in his life, you have to be there as a mom. And then I have the hat as kind of managing some of the business aspects of things and in contract reviews and, money placement and things like that. And so investment and, helping him with taxes and understanding the implications of all of that and all the things that are important to save and do along those lines as well. So, anything that I can do to help, I'm happy to help with. I help his friends also and some of his coaches and other people doing writing resumes and helping them with that, just to help people advance their careers. I think that that's something I'm happy to do and give back. And I'm frankly happy to do it for my son as well.
It's wonderful to hear that you were able to travel and see your son as often as you did and be there for him as often as you could. However, we both know that there were a lot of mothers that were incapable. They cannot, whether it's financial, whether it's health, they just could not be there. They couldn't be at their son's games, sometimes ever. What advice would you give to these mothers? What would you say to them and say, look, I understand you cannot physically be there, but this is how you still can be involved in your son's career, or this is how you can still support him? Like, what would you suggest?
Well, I mean, even like your story, as you explained to me about letting your son go at an early age and go to America, I do think that families are confronted with, a lot of different situations, whether it be their job that restricts them from work, whether it be, other children and other siblings that have other interests too that they need to attend to, as well as then the financial aspect of things, or maybe even the logistics. It just depends. We were fortunate enough, to eventually get to a thing where we had a sponsored team. That Under Armour sponsored Sports University, Team IZOD, which was, and IZOD also, PVH, sponsored Wade's AAU team. And that helped defray the costs of a lot of the kids that were on the team. Also, because they didn't have to, then pay to be on. But up until that point, we paid for him to be on, right, AAU programs and things like that as well. So it is a money business. And I think that that's something that people have to realize too. But as far as being there and supporting your son, even if you can't be there, I guess in a way, I'm blessed and cursed. I'm blessed because I only have one child. And then, of course, I would have loved to have more children. But would things have turned out exactly as they did had that been the case? Probably not. So the best advice I would give to mothers is stay involved, stay connected. You know that you are a tremendous influence in your son's life, regardless of whether they go through their teen or 20s, and try to make you think like maybe you're not. But deep down, I think a lot of them know that you are and appreciate the fact that you are involved. Your role as a mother is really to just be there to help advance your son and to protect your son. So I think in both of those instances, if you're advancing him because you have to let him, I once wrote Wade a poem when he was 1 year old and gave it to him. And one of the lines in it was something, I'll let you go to grow. You know, you're holding on tight to somebody now, but you have to let them go to grow. And I think that sometimes you do have to do that. You just have to let them go to grow. As my parents always told me, you have a place to come back to if you need to. You always have some place to come home to. But just be supportive, be involved, and stay connected. And with social media, with the phones today, you know, it's way different than we were growing up. You know, you had the landline or whatever. But stay connected. And even if they're going through a rough time or struggling through or pushing you away, stay steadfast. And I think, you know, from what I hear from a lot of the moms in the Mothers of Professional Basketball organization as well, is they stay strong. And everyone tries to stay strong in their child's life, whether it be because you're absolutely present at every game. I don't know. Does that make you any more dedicated or involved as somebody who has a great relationship with their son via text, FaceTime, whatever it happens to be, and has periodic, very special and momentous times when they are together. I think it makes those times rich as well. So stay involved, though, most of all. Be there to protect your son, because this is a business and it's not always a kind business, but it's one that has tremendous advantages for the player and the families as well.
What are the disadvantages in your mind in this business world?
I think realizing you're a commodity, whether it's at the college level, the AAU level, and I think people really do realize that there's been enough exposés on, you know, the good side and the bad side of the business of basketball. But ultimately, I think it's in the area of entertainment, and ultimately, I mean, that's what you're there to do. Mm-hmm. Teams want to put the best product on the floor for the value of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we all buy tickets to go to games and we support the teams that we do, et cetera. So you're a piece of that entertainment industry. And, you know, I think everybody just has to kind of make their own way and deal with the peaks and valleys and just try to stay positive, because there is a lot of negative aspects. And just like any athlete will tell you, it doesn't matter what the sport is. You all go through mental peaks and valleys as well to realize what your position, what is your role on the team? What does the team want you to do? You used to be the big man on campus here. You went there, you had great success here. And now you have to navigate through what your role is going to be. And I think for most people, keeping your egos in check probably is a really important thing to do, and just try to stay grounded and have a really good network of people around you, I think. And don't listen to the negative. I think a lot of these kids these days listen to social media and take things to heart. But I think that you've got to kind of rid yourself of that and keep just believing in yourself. And I think by and large, most of these players do exactly that. But I think if they can't or they don't, then I think like the NBA is pushing the mental health aspect of things too. And then I think that that's important. I know we as the Mothers of Professional Basketball players are looking to do some things in those areas as well to help people realize that there isn't such a stigma about getting help if that's actually what you need.
Yeah. Of course, some of our sons, it's really hard to deal with a lot of the pressures that they go through today, and people don't understand that they're just humans.
Absolutely.
You know, Wade is Wade,
23 years old.
That's it, and he's a kid. You know what I mean? He went from living a middle class life to now he's a professional basketball player, and people have these stigmas on him, but he's still Wade. So I completely understand what you're saying about the pressures and things like that. So, what do you want to leave us with today?
I'd love to leave everybody with a great thank you to you, Wendy, and your team at Title League Productions for having me here to Nova Scotia. I know we got in late last night, but I'm excited to see Nova Scotia. And I'd love for all of the mothers of professional basketball players, or even those that are striving to get into professional basketball, to know that as long as your son is enjoying himself, and that's something that you have to check on too, as long as they're enjoying themselves and they still love the game and they still have a passion for the game that they want to play, let them do that and let them pursue their passion. And if it becomes that it's not that anymore, then that's okay too. Don't be so enamored by the money and the fame and, if there is fame and fortune associated with this. I mean, some people are obviously more recognizable than others, but, just really stay true to yourself if you can. Stay true to yourself and your principles. And I think, life will take you far on the court, off the court, and beyond in the future.
Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing Wade's story and your story. You're the person behind Wade, and that is evident. And thank you so much for being that success and that one driving him, because it is difficult. And you are so knowledgeable. And I believe this is going to help so many moms, even current professional basketball moms, right? There's so much things that you and I have spoken about that I had no idea. And other moms that we get involved with, and we just sit there and we share and we talk our stories, and we just learn every day. And this is information we can feed back to the public, and this is information we can feed back to our sons even, and to NCAA players that are up and coming and ready to go through the same process that we have. So thank you so much for coming here today on Courtside Moms.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Courtside Moms, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast.
I do it naturally, baby.